It was a gun.
I'm not voting.
If we want to build our nation.
The problem with the Somalians.
Just want to experience something else than a black man.
Move on, move
Can't be
forward.
like a horse with blinkers on.
Honestly say, I was about to have
Corrupt
sex and then I pulled
crap,
up.
but it's nice.
I'm Joe Mennel from Street Talk, and today's subject is going to be breaking the stigma of mental health.
My name is Louis Ngoro. I am a recovery coach and a recovering alcoholic as well.
I'm Mervyn. I'm an addictions counselor / coach, and I'm in recovery as well.
I am just a normal 54-year-old male. I work for myself. I also am in recovery. I've had mental health issues since I was very young.
What is it about men particularly that makes them very reluctant to be able to talk about, to be able to open up to issues surrounding mental health?
You know, I grew up in an era where it's always been stigmatized. You had psychiatric hospitals, let's mention Tara for instance. And I mean, this was from my parents directly, and the circles that I was in, it's like, oh, so-and-so's gone to Tara, they fucking mental, they crazy, they insane, and that has just ingrained in me and my generation a sense that anybody who is struggling, even if you've had a mental breakdown or for stress or too much stress or for whatever reason, it's like it's a one-way street and a no-way back sort of situation. And that's sort of in my culture and, my typical white background, that was like, you don't want to go there because you'll be stigmatized. So don't even mention that you're battling mentally. It even was so much so that if you went to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, like, that's just not a good thing, which is absolutely the worst thing that could have ever transpired, because everybody, and I mean everybody, suffers mentally. Doesn't matter who you are, what background you come from, what culture you come from. We all have stresses, we all have strains, especially in today's modern society, especially sitting with the lockdowns and, the restrictions that we have today. It is a stressful life. And we all are feeling stress. And I am finding that a lot of people aren't talking about it. So they're not being able to relieve that stress in any way. And that stress leads to depression. I mean, there's a lot of people depressed. And depressed is a mental condition, guys. It is, I understand it so well because I've done a lot of research into it, and also been a counselor. It is just a chemical imbalance in the brain.
For me, growing up, it was like, you can't be depressed. That's a white man's illness, and that kind of was the perspective, and which is interesting because what you're saying is, you know what I mean? It's interesting, the stories that came up and how I'm experiencing what you're saying, I suppose your truth. That's why I'm finding that funny. It's kind of, for me, it was taboo growing up with, talking about my feelings. I kind of, I suppose the idea was that I should have been hard at breakfast. Do you know what I mean? I should be hard. I should be, I shouldn't talk about that stuff. I shouldn't talk about what's going on for me. And I think that was modeled to me by the world, and I suppose my world and the world that was around me, and from my parents and from, you know, men around me. So there wasn't much of, you know, room for feelings. So I agree with that. I completely agree with that. And I suppose, and that's where the other stuff comes in, then the escapism of, okay, well, I should numb what I'm feeling. And then also, I mean, you know, when it comes to psychiatric, I mean, I work in a psychiatric hospital. You know, I've been here for about 7 years, 8 years. And I mean, even in terms of my own experience of being depressed, like I got super depressed last year and suicidal, you know, and I think the one thing that I'm sitting with is shame, because I think that's the one thing that came up for me was shame of I can't. You should be together now. Do you know what I mean? Like you're in recovery, you've been sober for such a long time, for 15 years of your life. You cool now, buddy. Like you shouldn't be depressed. And I think that's the story that was in my head. And I reached out and I asked for help, and I ended up being on medication and I went to go see a psychiatrist. And what happened was I was diagnosed with mild depression. Yeah, and I was on medication for a while. You know, and I needed it to kind of get through what I needed to get through. But there was a lot of judgment as well on myself of, what are you doing? You medicating? You don't need medication. You know, and all these stories going on in my head. But the truth is, I'm very open to the medical part and being medicated. You know,
And Lewis, you know, have you found it difficult to raise this subject with people around you?
I have definitely found some difficulty raising the subject, and found myself being more careful and cautious with certain individuals, pretty much because of maybe cultural background and just seeing how sensitive it is and the reception not being so good. And I understand it, because as Mervyn shared, we grew up in an environment where you're not allowed, there is no environment for you to show any weakness. Mm-hmm. Any sign of anything close to depression or anxiety was you're being lazy, and anything manic is seen as a curse. You're spiritually cursed, and one would then go for years without getting any treatment or starting any medication. There's no diagnosis of the actual problem. So bringing it up and speaking to other men and saying, hey, buddy, you know, have you thought about going to therapy? The response would be, why do you think I need therapy? Is there something wrong with me? So already, it's already been seen and put as a bad thing. You're going to be sent away, or you're going to go see someone because you have failed to find your own solutions or find a way to get out of whatever situation, and now you need help. So immediately that sends one into a place of weakness, and men don't want to be seen as weak. So I think this is where we are, and most of the times the conversation is had when it's pretty much in the later stages, when things are an extreme case. So I think now it is better than obviously 5-10 years ago. There's a lot of talk around mental health. There are more men that are opening up and speaking about it. So in terms of the reception, it's much better now, but we definitely need to to do more. And obviously around the support and speaking more about the medication.
There is definitely a guilt complex which I certainly am made to feel amongst my peers, you know, and also within myself. And Mervyn, you mentioned it, when my psychiatrist diagnosed me as bipolar, I found it very difficult to accept for myself. You know, I was saying, me, I'm like mentally ill. And she said, yes, but she explained it in the way that, you know, you're not sick in the mind. You haven't got some disease up there. It's a chemical imbalance in your brain. And I've always been very anti-taking medication. And I was very, very reluctant, but I knew I was in such a desperately bad space that I was willing to try anything. And boy, did it change my life. And so I now spread the word, especially amongst my peers, especially amongst my male friends, because, you know, a lot of them say big boys don't cry or cowboys don't cry. You know, we are the breadwinners. We got to stay strong. We cannot show weakness to our children. We cannot show weakness to our peers in business. You know, a lot of people in the corporate space that I associate with, there is no ways they are going to open up to their colleagues and say, I'm bipolar, you know, or an even worse one is I've got manic depression, which is bipolar. It's like, how are they going to judge me? And there is a lot of judgment around it. You know, how can you be the big breadwinner? How can you live in the big corporate space, but you're not mentally not stable? You know, and we need to discuss this. We need to share our experiences. My experience is, I'm so grateful for the medication that I've got. I'm so grateful I found the right psychiatrist eventually to help me to live a happy, stable life, because that's what I'm living now.
My dream is to create a wellness place where anybody can come and find a safe place to better themselves and find healing.
And my dream is to co-create a world of healing by speaking my truth and being vulnerable.
My dream is to bring the whole of humanity to realize that we are all one. We all come from one source, and we all love. And that if we all realized that we come from one creator, to change the world by spreading that love and that light.
Yeah, Z, you should ever sit and talk with people, or else take a walk and create a straight talk. Talk what is nice, it will make you feel stronger. Listen what is right and say what is wrong. You should ever sit and talk with people, or else take a walk and create a straight talk. Talk what is nice, it will make you feel stronger. Listen what is right and say what is wrong.